good afternoon, everyone. If I may please welcome Eli Milki onto stage and Dimitris Manikis. And we're here this afternoon to discuss the Capital, Coastlines and Control, the Eastern Mediterranean investment map for owners.
Thank you.
So looking at the Eastern Mediterranean, it has become a magnet for capital and attention. And what do you both see as the key fundamentals driving this investment surge currently? Eli, maybe we'll start with you.
Yes, thank you. The Eastern Mediterranean, depending which countries you include, would be, let's say, Greece, part of the Balkans, Turkey, Cyprus, and depends if you want to include the Levant and Egypt. Obviously, very diverse markets, but for the sake of this panel, I think we'll focus more on, let's say, Greece, Turkey, Cyprus, maybe Egypt as well. I think what we've seen recently is the recovery in Greece since 2018, 2019, and we've both been in a good position to capitalize on the market there. We saw an influx of investors into Cyprus as well, and we've both expanded our footprints in those markets. We've noticed how Greece and Cyprus have not only attracted local investors, but also foreign investors, whereas you have other markets like Turkey and Egypt, for instance, where they attract mostly local investors. And so we've been well positioned to expand in cities, in main cities, and in resort destinations. And that's how we've now established ourselves in many of these markets, and that's how we will continue to expand on those existing relationships.
Thank you. And how many hotels does Radisson have at the moment in that region? And how many more are you planning in the next 5 years?
Well, let's say in Turkey we've got 50, nowhere close to where Wyndham are, but 50 properties, most of them being in Istanbul, or a big proportion. We've got currently close to 15 hotels and resorts in operation in Greece. We started back when we launched our strategy in 2019. We had 1 property. Today we have close to 15. We've got 5 of them opening next year. We've got 2 operating in Cyprus and 3 under development, making us the biggest international hotel group in Cyprus as well, and close to 10 hotels and resorts in operation in Egypt as well.
And Dimitris, from your side, what's driving the investment surge in that region?
First of all, I have to tell you, I was very challenged when I saw him on the panel because he's a far better and far younger version of me. So please don't compare. Don't compare. I want to be him when I grow up.
Just not as colorful.
Yeah, no. Eli is. I hate being on the panels with Eli because he's a huge competitor. So, look, I'm with Eli. I think that. There's a lot of fundamental things that have changed the last 10 years. And it wasn't actually the great financial crisis. Remember, if you look at, and I'm Greek, right? I remember the days that my family, we used to go to the ATMs to get their 60 euros per day to actually make the ends meet. So we should never forget those days and how long it has taken us to be where we are today. Today, we have one of the strongest GDPs in Europe. I dare say it's better than Germany's, which is quite a big accomplishment for us. And at the same time, we've become the place to be from an investment perspective in hospitality. And Eli is right. The things that have actually changed, though, is the way the young hoteliers in Greece see their future. In the past, there was no brands in Greece. There was the meaning of branding was kind of like your mother's name or your mother-in-law's. You know, that was the branding. Maria's whatever, or Panayota's resort. Now they realize that those days are gone. The other thing that has fundamentally changed is that the young generation of hoteliers, because we're predominantly family business, right? That's still a lot of investment, but the families are actually running the hotel business in Greece. The young generation, they don't want to be in that business, or they've decided they want international appeal. That's how Ellie has 15, I have 14, Hilton, Marriott, all our peers, they're all having a great time in Greece because now it's mature. It's a mature market. People realize branding is important, so that's one. Second is the fact that we became a very popular destination for investors. And again, Ellie is absolutely right. Egypt, Turkey, locals, Greece, Cyprus, internationals. So a lot of international hedge funds, private equity are now investing in Greece. Obviously prices have gone up, but at the same time, the market is developing to become a proper global international market. So if you put all this together, I see a great future for Greece. I equally see a great future for Cyprus. Turkey, we have 135 hotels and a very strong pipeline. We believe in Turkey, 90 million population, an amazing location in the whole Middle East. And at the same time in Egypt, I was in Cairo on Sunday where we signed our Wyndham Residences Cairo West. Egypt, I think, is going to be the place to be in the next 5 to 7 years. So both Ellie, from a Radisson perspective, and myself and my team from a Wyndham perspective, I think we're well positioned. But again, you have to be cautious because anything can happen. It's a very fragile region. Huh? Remember, it's anything can happen and can change the dynamics. So cautiously optimistic, riding the wave as it happens, but always remembering that anything can happen in the region that can really change the momentum and the dynamics.
And looking at it from an investment perspective, where would you say the cycle is currently for new investors that are just starting to look at that region now? You know, is it at the peak? Is there still runway for other brands to come and enter the markets? Not just Greece, but also the other Eastern Mediterranean markets?
Look, again, those who came to Greece right after the great financial crisis need to exit now. The whole 7-year cycle on the funds. So they're exiting. So new funds are coming in. If you look at the Grand Hyatt, it was sold for $450,000 per room. I mean, that's a record for Greece. Now, the question is Greece going to become an expensive destination for people to invest in? That remains to be seen. That is my biggest worry, that the perception of the Greek hoteliers is if he got 450, I can get 500, and then deals won't happen. So that's one. I think, and Ellie is a great example. Together with us, we came into the country with no real plan. I mean, I can talk about Wyndham. We were opportunistic at the beginning, but now, from opportunistic, it has become a strategy because we see the appetite of local hoteliers to do business with brands. In Turkey is another story. In Cyprus, a bit different story. But if you put it all together, I think the life cycle, it's still high. The opportunity is still there. But again, we have to be cautious on what's happening near us. What is Saudi doing? What UAE is doing? I mean, I was surprised to see Albania, exhibiting here very strongly and offering great incentives for people to invest in Albania. We've got Croatia. So the whole ecosystem in the Eastern Med, whatever you define as the Eastern Med, is going to be an interesting place to watch in the next 5 to 10 years.
And you just mentioned a lot of the investment coming from private or family offices in Greece. How is this for other Eastern Mediterranean countries, Eli?
One thing about the previous question was important was that I believe for instance, in a place like Greece and Cyprus, the market may be peaking, but that doesn't mean it's peaked and that doesn't mean it's the end. It just means because these two markets have the lowest brand penetration in Europe and the Mediterranean, I keep saying Greece, out of 10,000 hotels, it's only 1% are internationally branded. Cyprus has a similar brand penetration. That's the lowest compared to Turkey, compared to Italy, compared to Spain. And those countries have moved on over the past decade or two into having more brands. So even if the market does peak, the mentality, as Dimitris said, is changing. The more and more families see the benefit of a brand. Even if there's a downturn, they would need the brand more than ever. And so we're getting that we're becoming more attractive from these local families, from the white label operators in Greece who want this exposure, and from foreign investors. And that applies to Cyprus as well. Sorry, can you repeat that question?
No, it was just more in terms of outside of Greece, other destinations. Is it then also private equity or?
In Cyprus, it's more developers and more funds that are entering the market. For instance, in Turkey, you've got, correct me if I'm wrong, Dimitris, more white label operators, multi-property owners. Franchising is quite strong in Turkey. In Egypt, you've got a lot of local developers, and what's driving these developments in some of these countries is branded residential developments that's driving hotel developments as well. So there are many dynamics that we see in every market, even though it's a small region, but every country, Albania being booming, beautifully booming, every country has its own potential. One thing that's important as well, there are different factors to take into account. Greece and Cyprus have a good funding infrastructure. Banks are ready to lend. Interest rates are still low. It's still an attractive market for investors, whereas in Turkey and in Egypt, you've got currency fluctuations, you've got very high interest rates of 30–40%. It doesn't make sense to borrow from a bank. So you've got different dynamics there as well, and that's why it's a very, very local market there.
And from an infrastructure perspective, and in particular the airlift, because it's the destinations are quite seasonal, and you have a very short amount of time to make your money throughout the year. So are there any plans to increase the airlift into the destinations? Expansions of airports?
I mean, you can walk to Greece from London, but it will take you a couple of months, or swim from... so you need the airlift, right? Every day in my business development, I'll give a tip to my friend Ellie here. Every month I get the new routes of airlines to see where the new big thing is. Because follow the planes. That has always been my strategy. Wherever the planes goes, that's where development is going to happen. There's two things about the airlift. First of all, the infrastructure in Greece especially is changing dramatically. We are now a 21st century country in terms of infrastructure, airports, highways, and wherever. Second, it is absolutely critical for Greece, and I'm so happy to see Invest in Greece actually being actively participating in all conferences of Invest to actually showcase what Greece is actually doing in order to attract more tourists. But the biggest bet and opportunity for me, being Greek, is the off-season. We have some of the most wonderful, and for those of you who haven't been, please come over. We have beautiful mountains. Our winter, we have sunshine 340 days a year. Our winters are very mild. Our gastronomy is amazing. Climate change is completely the way people travel. We see more people now coming to Greece in November and December, not just July and August. And the future is, I don't know how many of you know, I mean, he knows, he's more Greek than me, Ellie, now. You can ski in Greece. And we have amazing ski. So that to me is the big bet of Greece. Not the 9 months, actually how you make it 12 months. And this is where the airport, the airlines are doing a phenomenal job. TUI announced a few days ago that they're going to extend the season and they're going to travel to Greece all year round. Why? Because people are looking for new experience. They're looking for local gastronomy. They're looking for going up to the mountains. Chinese travel just to breathe. You know that you cannot breathe in Beijing. They travel in places just to go and breathe. That is where the Greek narrative and the Cypriot narrative can actually change dramatically. We're not just, the sea and the sun and the island. We're a 12-month destination, and everything can work towards that destination. In the next 5 years, I think this is where the big bet is.
I guess it's just changing, creating the awareness and changing the perception of, Greece just being a summer destination. Eli, anything that you would like to add? Yeah,
that's a very important point, because one of the reasons Greece, as an example, has become a success story is because it's becoming less seasonal. And that doesn't only apply to the islands. For instance, Athens used to be a stopping point to go to the islands. All of a sudden, Athens became a lifestyle city all year round. The only time, the slowest month is actually August, because that's when most leave the city. And it's become a gastronomic destination, an event destination, a wine destination. The capital has become very interesting. So more and more people are visiting Athens throughout the year, and that has made it very, very appealing. In addition, many seasonal destinations may remain seasonal, but the season is extending. Santorini over the years went from 5-6 months to 7 months. Some other islands are getting more attention because more and more people are moving away from the traditional islands of Mykonos, Santorini into Paros, Naxos, and all of a sudden these islands are opening up and they're getting more investor interest and more flights. Paros becoming an international airport, right? So more and more people going to Paros, going from a 3-month season to a 5-month season. So you've got the Peloponnese region. The Peloponnese region is a short drive from Athens. We're opening a resort there in next summer, 150 key Radisson Blu. We expect more and more people to come to that resort. We expect it to be open more than 6 months because corporates could use it for events in the off seasons. It could cater to local guests and local clientele. It would be operating for not just 6 months. Halkidiki is another example. So Greece is becoming an all-rounded destination and covering every segment of the industry, whether it's events, medical tourism, mountain resorts, beach resorts, and that's just one example.
That thing in the Peloponnese actually hurt me very much when he did it, because it's my hometown, and I'm like, I called my team and I said, what the hell? Really? It's my hometown.
I promised him a free stay.
And I told him, yes, and he promised me a free stay, right? Take a note of that. I got a free stay.
Excellent. Let's move on to brands development and sustainability. And Dimitris, you mentioned earlier in your previous panel that we don't talk about sustainability enough anymore at conferences. And given the coastline and the nature and the landscape and everything else that's beautiful, the clean air. So in terms of how do you approach that then too, with investors and to make sure that it's scalable, but at keeping sustainability in mind?
Look, I'm really worried because before COVID, every conference I went was about millennials and sustainability. Every conference after COVID, and especially after certain changes that have happened, sustainability suddenly disappeared from the center stage. And it's all about AI and technology. That, to me, is worrying. Because I think that from a hospitality perspective, we have a duty of care to the next generation to deliver more than we take. That's my motto. We give back more than we take. What is the beauty of a Greek island, as Eli very rightly said, if it's full of plastic bottles and plastic bags and a completely horrible experience? So if sustainability doesn't come back in the center stage of conversations between governments, brands, and everybody that has a role to play in sustainability, I think we're making a big mistake, a huge mistake. I think Greece and Cyprus and Turkey and Egypt, they all have, thank God, sustainability as a key component on their sales pitch and their elevator story. But we need that to be performed down in the ground. The good news about what happened after the great financial crisis is that you had a lot of young Greeks who didn't decide to migrate. They stayed in the country and they said, look, we're going to give this a shot, but we're going to do it in a different way. If you walk through the Athens airport at the duty free, you will see olive oil, honey, Greek products in a completely different design, organic, introducing Greek culture and Greek gastronomy to the world. I see so many people buying bottles and bottles of honey and olive oil, and they're going back and they're promoting Greece in an indirect way. Why did that happen? Because people decided they're going to stay in Greece, and in a sustainable way, they're going to grow the things that our fathers taught us, but we neglected in the process because we all became greedy and we all looked for the easy profit. A lot of young Greeks are actually doing that. Eli said, look at Athens, restaurants, bars. These are all young kids that in the great financial crisis decided to invest in gastronomy, to do Greek with a fusion. You know, it's not just a Greek salad anymore. It's a Greek gastronomy with a fusion. We have more Michelin star restaurants now in Athens than ever before. Why? And we do it in a sustainable way. That's the story of Greece today. And it's the story of Cyprus, and it's the story of Egypt gradually, and the story of Turkey. That's what the Eastern Mediterranean is actually doing.
It brings a lot of storytelling then too for the hotels once they open up to their customers. So Eli, how does Radisson balance the sustainable growth?
We've got major initiatives in the company from our head of sustainability, founding members of UN-sponsored organizations when it comes to sustainability, that's all trickling down to every aspect of the development phase and after the hotels open, and how we treat water, how we treat disposable items and plastic bottles and all of that. So this is ingrained now as part of our culture from a development phase and during the operation as well of a hotel. And we've got examples of solar panels at the Radisson Blu Larnaca, at the Radisson Beach Resort, the different ways of treating water, and we've got some examples. What's important is Dimitris touched on the very important soft elements of it, because this will make the destination more attractive. Because one of the players in the industry that's really focused on sustainability is the consumer. And when the consumer, who's becoming more demanding, rates you high on TripAdvisor, whatever, one of the factors is sustainability. Is the hotel being conscious? Are there some initiatives taking place, whether it's the environment, the community, the health and stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got the consumer that's demanding, wanting sustainability and responsible business. You've got the investor wanting responsible business to develop sustainably and to be able to control costs in the future. You've got the banks who are providing green loans. You get a loan if you have a sustainable development, if you meet the criteria for the loan. You've got governments introducing initiatives when it comes to sustainability. So you get some initiatives that encourage investors to develop in a sustainable way. So that makes it a very well-rounded offering, requirement, government incentives, banks, consumers, to offer something to make sure that sustainability is at the core of every hotel development.
Thank you. In terms of ultra-luxury and all-inclusive resorts, where do you see the ratio going by 2030?
In my case, we are not into ultra-luxury.
But in general, not just for Radisson, but like in general for the destination?
No, good point, yes. I believe there is a market for ultra-luxury, but it's a small niche. I think eventually every market would need to realize that the bulk of the business and the bread and butter is where we operate, right? So that's where the money is, that's where the future is, that's where sustainable development is. It's in the budget tier, mid-scale tier, upscale, upper upscale. I think this is where the future is. That doesn't diminish what ultra-luxury is. My wife would prefer to stay at a Four Seasons than a Radisson. But obviously, but then that's not the bulk of the business, and that's not the So every destination has to have a more sustainable approach to development. When it comes to all-inclusive, I think there's a huge market for all-inclusive, and I think it's driven by some certain destinations and certain clientele.
Govin, who works for me here in Dubai, I keep on telling him, sell a lot of Super 8s so you can stay at the Four Seasons. No, I mean, look, a couple of facts, right? Luxury is 10% in the world. How many people can afford a Louis Vuitton bag or an Hermes Birkin? 10%, 12% probably. So that's one answer.
It depends how they buy it, right?
Yes, it depends how they buy it. If you go to Istanbul, you buy it from the bazaar, you buy it for 300. I've got the details. I can give you the right guy. Anyway, so that's one thing. Second, do you know that is the first time in history there are more kids stay with their parents in the UK because they cannot afford to stay on their own? I have two girls. They both stay at home with me because they cannot afford their own place. That's the world that we live in. The question about ultra luxury is, who can afford those hotels in 15 years from today? It is the first time in mankind that the next generation is going to be poorer than the previous one. Unfortunately, that's the case. Look at Europe. People cannot afford to stay in a 45 square meters apartment. They cannot afford it. There's a housing crisis. So if you put all this together, yes, I get it. There's always going to be an amazing place for ultra luxury and respect. But there are two things for me that are important. First of all, travel is a human right. I keep on telling everybody. Now travel is a human right. Everybody has a right to travel. Second, there's 1.4 billion people in the world that are going to travel this year. Do you think they're all sexy and cool and rich? No, they're not. So we're very happy where we are. There's always a place for ultra luxury. Remind you, travel is inclusive, not exclusive. So it includes the whole world. And third and most important, who are your customers of the future? How many of your young generation today, the 25-year-olds, can afford $1,000 a night in Rome in 5 years from today? That's what I say to my investors, and that's what I say also to my team. There is always a place for this, but there's always a place for the rest of the world.
So the ratio then is less than 10% in that space?
I don't know. Is luxury 10%
return?
in the world? I don't know. 10, 12? I don't know.
It's a good estimate, I think.
It's a good estimate, yeah.
And what about for private residences?
I think, look, we got into the private residency space only because our investors wanted us to be there. Again, we didn't go on the luxury space. We went into the middle class space because we believe that's where the bulk of the money is. We're very happy. My team here is rocking it. We are signing branded residences. You gotta be careful though, because branded residences is still a product to be sold. And we as a brand, and I think Ellie actually agrees, hopefully, there's a lot of reputational risk if you don't do it with the right operator. With the right builder, the right operator, there's a lot of reputational risk because somebody's selling using your name for you without you. Think about this, for you, but without you.
And you don't have to jump on the bandwagon just because everybody else does, right?
And exactly that. We did it because we saw a niche in the mid-scale market. You know, how many people can afford an X5 on an X6? And how many people can afford the next X1, X2, X3 BMWs? That's why my thesis has always been on development.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
We also got pulled into brand residences. We're very picky how we do it because of the reputational risk and because it's still a very untested part of the industry in the long run. Yes, the bulk of the business is in that mid-scale, upscale tier, and that's where we're operating as well. We tend to only focus on brand residences where we have a hotel component that could service the branded residences. Very rarely, in very, very exceptional occasions, do we consider a standalone brand residential component. So yes, it's something that is a trend, but you're right, we have to be very, very cautious.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have one or two questions from the audience? No?
I have my own Greek olive oil brand. If you want to, I can sell you some olive oil when we're done.
Amazing. I'll take some of that.
Yeah, me
thank
too.
you very much, Dimitri and Eli, and thank you very much to the audience for listening.